Hey everybody, it's me, Jason Moralez with Nova Jade Cosmetics. Today I got an awesome and upcoming legendary artist who has already made a name for himself in Web 2. Now he has entered the Web 3 space. I want everybody to welcome Jeremy Fisher. How you doing, Jeremy?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah, most definitely. It's definitely a pleasure you having you on here. You know, I always like talking to you in Twitter Spaces, seeing your content and stuff online, your art. A lot of people don't know Jeremy Fisher right now. He's actually the founder of a NFT collection called Lucky Ducky. It is a handcrafted clay stop motion animation NFT. It is very original. And I wanted to learn a little bit more about Jeremy's background as an artist leading up to blockchain. So Jeremy, let's go ahead and get this interview started. So I know there's a path for anybody who's in any kind of skill to get started. So where did you get started with art, and what kind of media first interested you?
So I mean, it's funny that like you can really start at any point in your life being creative. Like it doesn't, limit you to being an adult getting into it or like being a kid. But I started off as a kid and just like doing this for fun, just painting, drawing. I would fill all my sketchbooks with little like cartoons and doodles and stuff. And I was also like really interested in sculpture and making things with my hands. As far back as I can remember, I was like big into Legos and toys, and um, so it's always been a thing that like I was like built up on since day one, basically. Like as far back as I can remember, I was always like making stuff and crafting and painting and drawing and all that. So it was kind of like a natural progression that like as I got older, like when they had like what you wanted to go when school, when you would come in and be like, what's your future career going to be? And like, there'd be kids dressed up as like scientists and horseback riders, and I was always an artist, like because I was just like thought of myself as like, this is what I do art. um so like that's like not a lot of people. As I've like gotten older, I've realized that like not everybody has that experience, and I've just always felt comfortable making art and building things and working with my hands. I was really lucky that I got to like take art classes really young when my classes weren't great in school. I could like go to a neighborhood teacher and learn some other things from like watercolors and paper mache and like all these other techniques and things. Um, but yeah, that's kind of like where it came from. My mom was super supportive. I was very much like encouraged to like always be creating things. She'd be like pushing me to enter contests and just like get over that hurdle of failure, because I lost more contests than I won. Obviously, like I was never an expert at any stage of this. It was always just like me trying things out and experimenting. Um, but I mean, like once you start doing that work and start like practicing, it gets easier every time you mess up or you like don't succeed. Um, it's just, you keep at it and you keep at it. It's like skateboarding or like riding a bike. You just get back on it over and over again, and you get better each time.
Trial by
Uh,
Yeah, trial by error is it's a learning experience. And whenever you're publicly, like how you say in contests of like failure, that I would say obstacle of humility, that a lot of people, when people start crossing that obstacle of humility over and over, they get better. They get better at the craft. So that's awesome that you stuck with that. So you had experience and support from your family and other people who could teach you art. What made you drive toward the direction of working with clay specifically as an art media?
so a lot of it was through stop motion. Was kind of like my first idea around like, oh, I can make movies now. Like I was you know, seeing Star Wars, a bunch of movies that like had really awesome special effects, and then finding out that stop motion is the process that they make all these creatures and ships and things move around. And then wanting to try to like practice that on my own and make my own films. And that like, back in the 90s or early 2000s, it was like not, you can just like buy everything on Amazon or like, have it one day delivery. So a lot of times if I couldn't find a toy or something at the store, I would just like make it myself and just like make my little crude like sculpey version of whatever alien or creature I need to make for the scene. And so that kind of like got me into working with clay and sculpting and you know like this sculpty stuff you just bake in the oven. Um, but that all like kind of ties together because clay is such like an important part to stop motion and claymation, that you know I started experimenting with it. Like I started messing with Legos and doing Lego animations, and I started messing with clay and doing claymations, just kind of testing everything out. And it's kind of like the perfect opportunity too before the internet was really a huge thing that you could just like mess around in your bedroom and not worry about like uploading it to YouTube or Instagram and having it be like, you know, up to the, you know, all the audience and like everything else in the world that's happening right now. Like it was just my little thing I got to work on and build and show some friends, and my family and stuff. And I think that was nice, like to have a little incubator like that, not be like discouraged because, you know, when you put stuff out there, it's like it's now up to the full gamut of like the world at large. Like
The
you
ju-
make an animation and now it's like it's compared to every single animation that's ever come before it, or like it's being made at the same time.
oh, I
So
understand.
it's I can see like being a kid now being like really daunting in that side, like, but also being like you have like so many more resources that I didn't have as a kid. But it's like, yeah, like how can you make something and feel good about it when you're now being compared and comparing yourself to like everything else that's um, currently being made. But yeah, that was a really nice time for me to just play and explore and just figure it out and having no real like idea of where it was going, but just kind of like be interested and kind of play with it a little bit. Um,
It's a
yeah, and I just kept making these little short films and developing it as all through middle school and high school.
Yeah, it's a very unique art form. With clay, I know. I mean, I grew up in the '80s and stuff, and there wasn't a lot of claymation that were obviously claymation shows like Star Wars. Some people didn't know that that will stop animation and stuff unless they seen like behind the scenes makings and stuff. But it's very original art. It's very hard to replicate. You can't just copy and paste a piece of clay.
Mhm.
So how did you get to working with clay and stop motion as a professional paid artist? What was the road to that?
So there's a couple stops and starts with that. Like you know, I was doing that back in middle school, high school, and kind of making my own little niche in stop motion. Um, but it was kind of like a blessing and a curse at the same time that like I'm watching all these behind the scenes movies and how they made all this work, and then I'm also learning that like computer animation is now the like like big thing that everyone is drawn to. So, you know, I think Jurassic Park is the one that everyone points to as like the one where like they split off where it was going to be stop motion for the dinosaurs, but then they were like, no, we need to make them CG, and that kind of started the track for all the films of that era to like go in CG path, and Star Wars as well. Like the prequels were mostly computer generated characters and stuff. So when I got a little bit older, I started seeing that happen, and I realized that like, you know, I can't just go to school for stop motion because that's no longer the main thing that people are being employed by and going to school for, and it's now computers and computer animation. So I set my sights on going to college for computer animation, and I went to Florida for Ringling College. I was Ringling School at the time, and got in their animation program. But about 2 years into that, I realized that like after taking like preliminary like Maya classes and ZBrush and character designs and all this stuff that like to put me towards like being a Pixar artist, I really don't like doing the computer animation part. Um, it was just too like clicky for me with like literally clicking your mouse everywhere, and it's like that's the whole thing. Like you don't have any tactile element to it. And I started like getting really sluggish on it. I couldn't like pick up the skills I needed as fast as my classmates were, and I was struggling there. Um, so I came to a crossroads where I could either like drop out or change majors or retake the one of my classes again. And it's kind of like this whole life I had been leading up towards that point was kind of like sending me on this one path, and then it come crashing down and be like, oh wait, I don't actually want to do this anymore, and had to like kind of rediscover what it was that I got interested in with art and what like I was really passionate about, not this thing that I was being led astray with and being told to do. So I was able to switch majors to fine arts, and I got back into doing stop motion through the fine art department, where they had like painting and sculpture and just more like gallery based work. And I was able to find the freedom there to like kind of craft my own little stop motion curriculum. So I started taking classes for the film department, and I started taking like sculpture classes. I went over to the photography department and took some classes over there, and I kind of made like myself a bit of a thorn in the side of all the department heads, because like I'm not supposed to be taking all these curriculum specific classes, and I'm just kind of like showing up and being like, I need this class because I'm doing stop motion, and they're like, I don't know if we can do that, but and I just made a big stink about it, and I got all those classes worked out, and so I crafted my own little stop motion curriculum, just to train myself. And I took film classes to try to learn about the history of film and all the like the film language. But all just kind of like, I wasn't going to be limited by like what the school was offering at the time. And since then, they've really expanded stop motion, which is kind of funny that they have like now a whole department that you can take stop motion classes. But when I was there, you couldn't do that. And I had to kind of like make my own path. But yeah, that was the way I got my own little portfolio together. I made my own puppets and little animations again, and I fell back in love with the process, and something that had been missing for years for me. And then I reached out to a studio in I think they're in Burbank. A small studio called Buddy Systems, and they had an internship opening up, and I had a friend that was already out there. So I asked them if they could put in a good word, and they said, "Sure. How soon can you start next week?" And I said, "Oh, give me a couple of days, or actually give me 2 weeks." And I had lied on my resume and said I was already in California at the time, because I assumed that like if I was in Florida, they wouldn't want to like have me on as an intern, and if I'm not like serious enough to like show up. So I lied on my resume and said I was already in California. And so I was like, give me 2 weeks. And I spent those 2 weeks packing up and just moving myself across country. And I showed up the first day, and the first day I arrived in California to the internship. And I still had like my car full of all my stuff. And the guy was just like kind of dumbfounded that like, I was like, I looked like I was probably living on my car when I showed up. So he just didn't ask too many questions, but like you could tell like he just like he didn't want to ask too many questions after that. But yeah, that was my first like intro to getting an internship at this small studio. And they were doing commercials and stuff at the time. Like I think they're doing stuff like College Humor and some music videos. But I think about like 6 or 8 months later, they picked up Robot Chicken due to like Shadow Machine and uh, Stupid Monkey parting ways, which Stupid Monkey is Matt and Seth, the creators. Um, so Stupid Monkey paired up with Buddy Systems, and they became Stupid Buddy, and they became a much bigger studio like in the span of like a couple months. So I happened to be like the right place, right time to land a job there when I was interning. Um, and yeah, I got my foot in the door there, and started track reading, which is like a desk job. Basically, you transcribe the audio to all the phonetic sounds frame by frame. So A, E, I, O, U, the consonants, everything has to be played out frame by frame in like a spreadsheet. Um, and this work helps the animator know like okay, in shot or in frame 100, he starts a line of dialogue, and I have to make sure I have the right mouth on the character. If he's holding a gun and the gun goes off, I have to make sure I hit the like right notes on the sheet to like tell the animator when to start firing the gun. All that stuff is like pre-work to help the animator out and prep them for the shot so they can like make the characters do all the dialogue and the actions and stuff. Um, Kind of a thankless job, but I became really good at that, and spent like a year and a half doing that, and then eventually got to be an assistant animator, and then kind of proved my chops a little bit, and then finally an animator on robot. So it was like a 5 year journey from like intern to finally becoming an animator there. A lot of like twists and turns along the way.
That's a really interesting story, because Robot Chicken, I used to watch that a lot. Like when I was in the army, we're always looking for something funny to watch, and that was just something that was different with all toys and all these toys in there that I was familiar with like growing up, and it was funny. It was funny, and even without like all the script and the talking, just watching the toys come to life, that was enough to like make me a fan of like all that. Just seeing all the toys like come to life and everything going little roles. I thought that was so awesome. So you worked at Robot Chicken, you worked your way up, proved yourself to other artists and other people in the film industry. And then later on, I see there was a movie, Marcel The Shell, I believe it is. How did you get to working on this project from something like Robot Chicken?
So I worked with this guy who goes by his name is Pete, and he is another animator, really talented animator, but he also he sometimes produces and sometimes directs. And he like the thing about stop motion is that like when you get into it, and that's I'm sure as you've experienced too, that like you start to learn all the different pieces that go into a final piece. Like you start learning about sound editing because you have to like add audio to your stuff. You start learning video editing if you have to do, and VFX if you have to do like effects work on it. So you start like developing all these skill sets in so many different fields. So it kind of lends itself to like you can, if you're good at making props, you can now do like art department and build things. And if you're interested in like, storyboarding, now you can do storyboard. You could be a storyboard artist too. Like all these skills like lend itself to so many different fields. And Pete's one of those guys that like super talented. He's an animator, he's an artist. He's a really great like person to work alongside. And we've worked together on a number of commercials, and I'm trying to remember what else. A lot of seasons of Robot. Um, and I initially reached out to him for some like kind of like guidance on. I was going to start my own company at one point, and so I was asking him for some feedback on like how you start doing independent work and how you start freelancing, because the studios were kind of this like they call you up when work is available. So they'll say like, we have a season of Robot coming. Are you available for 6 months? And then you work 6 months, and then they let you go, and then you're off for another 6 months. So there's lots of like gaps between these shows and these seasons that you have to like kind of figure out the work in between, like the commercials, music videos. So I want to do more independent stuff, and I called him up, and he was like, "Well, before before I talk to you about that, like, are you available to work on Marcel The Shell?" And I said, "Heck yeah," because um, that was something I was really into since I first saw it on YouTube. But on top of that, one of my first jobs in LA, I was a track reader, and I did some VFX on one of the early Marcel episodes on YouTube. It was only like a 2 week job, but I got to meet the director Dean back then. And this was like, she was like 2012, 2013. And just a really short job. And at the time he said like, oh yeah, someday we're gonna make a movie. And I was like, yeah, let me know and I'll be down for it. But then fast forward to like 2018, 2019, my buddy Pete says he's assistant director on Marcel The Shell, and he was wondering if I was available for it. And of course, I had to agree to it. And yeah, we got to animate together. He was working alongside me, and I got to, meet the awesome team on that. And it was a really an interesting time because I was like right as the first like it was like March of 2020 when like COVID first hit and then everything shut down. And so we were only like 2 or 3 weeks into production, and then like we had to just like walk away from the studio for like 4 or 5 months. And we weren't sure like what was going to happen because we're in these warehouses where like really close quarters. So it's not like the safest place to be around people, and like you're not sure like what's happening at the time. So we were trying to be like, let's not surround ourselves with everybody when it's like enclosed and like a little petri dish in the studios. um so we eventually were able to safely go back to work like 6 months later, and we finished the movie. But what was supposed to be like a 4 or 5 month shoot ended up being like close to a year long process, just from like you know the whole COVID thing. But yeah, then we waited 2 years for it to find a distributor, and then it came out on with A24 and got a theatrical release. And yeah, the movie turned out great. It was super awesome to work on, and I think like some of my best like character animation I've done so far was with on Marcel.
Yeah, that's really awesome. You've done a lot of work, man. It's very impressive at the work that you've done, because a lot of people are gonna we all know the work. Everybody knows Robot Chicken, everybody knows Marcel, and if they don't, their kids do. So you built up a lot of good techniques and skills to get this far. Are there any memorable mentors that you attribute to helping you or guiding you, or anybody that was important during your career path as a stop motion animation?
Yeah, I mean, Pete was a big one. Like he was one of the first people that like trusted me to ask me to be his assistant on some smaller jobs, like commercials and stuff. So a lot of times when you're doing a commercial, you can only have maybe like 1 or 2 animators in there because the budget and stuff. So having an assistant animator helps to like, if Pete's directing and doing something here, I can be like setting up the next thing, or I can be like double checking the notes and making sure that everything's okay. And we had this great working relationship there, and he really helped me out a lot on that side. And there's also Alex Kamer. He is a supervisor on Robot Chicken. I'm not sure where he is now, but a long time I was there, he was supervisor, and he was like the lead animator there, and he taught me a lot about animation and timing, comedy, uh, a lot of things. Sorry. One thing that like a lot of people don't understand with stop motion is that it's a lot of the acting too. It's like you're delivering a performance through these characters that like it's not just like moving a object from point A to point B, but once you start doing character-based work, it's really about the delivering the dialogue and about like timing and trying to deliver like a natural performance. And so we're basically like actors a lot of times in these moments where if a puppet on Robot Chicken has to like really do some comedic timing or like make some goofy pratfall or something, like we have to like act it out beforehand. We have to like watch ourselves in a mirror or on like a video, and because the stuff like isn't like muscle memory. It's like a lot of like if I'm trying to like swing a baseball bat, um, I could just move the puppet just like this, but that doesn't look realistic. So I have to like think about like how am I like winding up, what part of me is like moving back first,
Yeah,
and when I'm swing, like it's like
the human
chest moves,
the
yeah,
body
like all that stuff.
stuff. Yeah, the body mechanics. I can understand, to get that realism into play with like movable characters and stuff. That's probably needed.
Yeah, it's really like it's one of those things that you could probably get away with if someone's just starting out with stop motion. Like you don't have to like figure out the body motion, but um, once you get to a certain level of understanding the mechanics of it, yeah, developing the character, the work is really important, because otherwise, like, yeah, you can move a toy and you can make him just like kind of do this, but once you figure out a way to move a puppet that has like joints and has a neck and has like all these extra elements, um, it will take you out of the scene way faster if it doesn't look semi-realistic for the acting part. Especially when it's like Robot Chicken is so dialogue heavy, it's like sometimes the joke isn't even how they're moving, it's just like what they say. And if you can't like make the character move appropriately, that's going to really be distracting to what the actual humor is. Um, so yeah, the Alex was a really great teacher on character performance and dialogue and timing and all that. And um, there's been a few other people that I'm trying on blank at the moment, but oh, I mean, Rich Zim. I mean, just talked about him the other day. That he was also another that like they each have their kind of like their element that they really helped me out on. Like, you know, Rich was more in understanding the lay of the land for as an animator, like how the studios work and how you're treated as an artist in this whole system. Because he's like, you know, he's a little bit older. I think he started working like around the year I was born, so he's been doing it for a minute, and he's seen the whole system change over the past like 30 years. So he took me aside early on when I was first starting out and really green, and I was like very like trusting and very like unassuming. I was like, oh yeah, like these guys are gonna treat me well and they're gonna look out for me, and like I just need to like prove myself. It's all gonna be great. And he's like, let me tell you what's really happening here. So it was like a good lesson in just like, you know, we're being reminded that, I mean, college and everything like really sets you up to like, not like suck up, but like really just look at these like giant companies as your like parental figures, or like they call it the dream job because it's like, oh, it'd be so cool to work for Disney, or oh, it'd be so cool to work for Pixar or any of these companies. Like, but when you get there, it really is a reminder that like these are just jobs, the same as any other job. Like there's always like some sort of, politics involved. There's always a lot of issues and, workplace with any job. And working in entertainment and creative fields are no different. So um, he helped me really like understand that aspect that like, if I'm not looking out for myself, then these guys are not going to be looking out for me. And it's like Robot Chicken is a great show to work on, and I had a great time making the projects. But end of the day, like they're jobs, and you have to be like really careful and just be aware of like who you're working with, and like what you're accepting as your time and your budgets and all this stuff. And any job will take advantage of you if given the chance, like in the creative field. Um, so he was a great teacher in that aspect, to just like look out for yourself, try to find your own thing that you can call your own. And that kind of like set me down this whole path with NFTs down the future. So yeah, he was a really great teacher in that end. And yeah, it was really cool that we got to like eventually work together again on this most recent project.
So how did you get into cryptocurrency? I know you've been an artist, talking about your career. How did you get into cryptocurrency and blockchain?
So that was when Robot Chicken was, I think they were between seasons, or I wasn't working for them for about a year. I found work at Hallmark of all places, and I started working there full time, and I got like a full like salary. And it's unheard of in stop motion to get like a salaried position doing that, like at like a regular office, with benefits and all that. Like typically you're freelancing, and you're kind of like let go whenever. And so I was working full time and had this really nice position at Hallmark that I was able to like put some money aside, and I was able to like start to like have a little bit of savings. They gave me a little 401k and stuff. And that was about the same time I started like looking into like Bitcoin and Ethereum, and started like seeing the stuff coming down the pipeline. I think it was like 2017. And I've been always like curious about different like technologies and things. And the idea of crypto was like really interesting to me, that it was like, it was kind of like upending the whole system of like digital currencies and stuff, like what we know about like with PayPal and stuff is completely different. And I had been introduced to it, I think way earlier back in like 2011 or something, when like I think Bitcoin was like $100 or something back then. And Coinbase gave me like $4 worth of Bitcoin to sign up back in 2011. And I think I just like download the app and then just like left it for like 5 years and just like didn't touch it. And it was like, okay, yeah, whatever. But like I wish like now, like I mean everyone says it, but like I wish I had like the wherewithal to like throw in $100 on Bitcoin or something back then. But um anyways, years later, when I did have some funds to put aside, I threw a little bit in there and just to kind of see what happens. And just doing more research and kind of like learning about the technology and um yeah, it was just kind of interesting. Like I'm not much of like a stocks or like bonds person. Like I don't care much about like trading that way, but like the idea of just what they're talking about with this like digital currency being like, crossing borders and instantaneous, and there's no like, I mean, if anyone's like ever gone to like, um, what's it called? Like when you do like a money order at like a grocery, like a gas station or something, or like, how they like, if you want to send someone money, like you sometimes have to do like a money order, and it's like this whole long process to like send money sometimes, and like Bitcoin and Ethereum just like made so much more sense to me. Just like instantly, like you didn't have to know anyone's details and info, and you didn't have to wait like days for it to happen. So yeah, that was like the kind of thing that got me interested in it. And then the more I learned about it, the more stuff I kept reading about with like, I think I heard about crypto kitties like maybe like a year or so later, and but yeah, just kept researching and diving into it. And
Okay, so Jeremy, so you got into cryptocurrency. You weren't really trying to trade. It was just new stuff. You understand the concept. You liked it. You agree with it. You're on board with it. So from cryptocurrency, how did you get into wanting to be involved with NFTs? Obviously, NFTs is a lot of artists are attracted to this. So how did you get started in NFTs?
so I think I mentioned earlier that I had started to look into CryptoKitties a little bit. That was on Ethereum, and it was kind of confusing to me at first because like I understood crypto to be this one token and currency thing, but then CryptoKitties was like, no, we're actually putting a game into it, or like I heard some article or report on it, and it was really confusing to me at the time because like they were doing something totally different than what I had assumed crypto was supposed to be. I don't even think they mentioned NFTs at the time. This is like, oh yeah, it's like some sort of crypto art project. You can collect these cats and something. I was like, okay, whatever. Like, me, I probably missed the ball on that one, and it's now like too late for me to get into that. But then fast forward to a little bit later, I'm working at Robot Chicken, and I start hearing about people who's doing this. Every piece of art he's ever done as a collection as an NFT. And I started learning more about this NFT thing and just finding out that initially I thought it was kind of like it was art about crypto that was like going to be like Bitcoin logos and like cheesy like imagery about crypto, which wasn't interesting to me at all. But then the more I dived into it, the more I learned that like no, it's actually the technology is a way of preserving artwork in the digital world that can now be traded and verified that it's unique and rare that way, which for anyone who's worked in digital art, like it's pretty impossible to do. Like you have to like literally put your video on on like a TV monitor in a gallery for it to be like a rare piece of art back in the day. Like I went to art shows where they literally had like LCD screens with a video playing, and that was the whole piece because you had to have a physical form of it to be, rare and valuable. Um, but NFTs were kind of like upending that whole thing to me, and were super interesting as a digital artist. Doing film or animation or digital art, like all those things are really hard to put into a gallery. So the more I started researching and learning, I was also at the time trying to look up different ways to do sort of like side jobs, or like I guess you call it like residual income, like I can't remember what the term is, but like basically something that you have like a digital file that someone can download and maybe pay a couple dollars for.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can't remember what the name is, but like basically something that I could make that would not be depending on me showing up and animating for that day. Um, that was going to be at first a series like 3D printed hands for puppets that people could purchase and download, and then it was also going to be a sticker pack for the App Store, so you could download these like skeleton hands, and they'd be given like a thumbs up or peace sign or something, and for a couple of dollars you could download the stickers or something. Um, but while I was developing that, like I heard about NFTs, and I was like, wait, this is where this project needs to go. I don't want to like put this up for a dollar or two. I want this to be like a piece of art. And I revised the idea to be like a really unique skeleton scene with a little like hand popping out of the ground, and the hands give like a peace sign or middle finger, or they're like it's waving, and it's kind of like a piece about like the past couple of years during COVID, where it's just like me imagining like, you know, kind of being like a skeleton hand popping out of the ground and giving a thumbs up. It's like there's a lot of like things you can read into that. Like you're either like excited for like, you know, the day, or you're barely alive, or like you're still kicking. Like there's a lot of like imagery and like association with that I found really interesting. And to me, it spoke as like a bigger art piece than just like a sticker. Um, so I got a invite to Foundation, and put up 6 pieces on Foundation over like 6 weeks. And I shot it all in my garage, and it was all just like prop skeleton pieces from Halloween that I made into a puppet. And the first piece sold in a week, and I got really excited about that. But this other artist who goes by Wax Bones. I think he's like a British guy that does really awesome like kind of spooky illustration work, and it's really good. Reminds me a lot of like skateboard company type design. And he bought my first piece in a week, and I was like, wow, this is so cool. And it's like the first time you sell something as an NFT, like your brain starts racing about like what this all could be and what the future holds, because it's like so different than selling anywhere else. Like selling the gallery, like now I gotta like, you know, deliver the piece to the person. I got like, if I send it out over the mail, I have to like pack it up and ship it. But this was just like, I got an email, so my piece sold, and that was it. Like, and I got the funds the same day, and it was like such a cool experience. And then I think like 3 months went by, and nothing else sold after that first piece in the first week. So I had like this like little bit of a chip on my shoulder that first week, and then afterwards it's like, okay, any day now, this stuff is going to sell, and then nothing sold for a while. Um, which, you know, like at any point I could have been like, you know, maybe it's not for me, maybe this is like kind of a fluke. But instead I just decided to like dive in harder and like learn more and research more and like kind of figure the space out more. It just seemed like a game that I could kind of like figure out and learn the nuances of, and the like technology behind it. Um, and the fact that it's so community based, it's like I got to basically reintroduce myself as an NFT artist, that they knew my work as a stop motion animator, but they that wasn't dependent on that work to be successful here, from everything I learned and saw. So I started finding other creepy kind of artists that were doing some stuff like mine, and we made a little creep crew, a little group chat that we like all shared artwork and talked about our stuff that we're working on, and you know, help hype each other up a little bit. Um, and that's where I met Goblin Town, who made these like creepy goblin pieces, and I met Devils, who I think he's based out of India,
Yeah.
and he was doing his like Crypto Devils project, and a bunch of other artists that like all doing kind of spooky art. Some like really cartoony, some really gruesome, and we all had this kind of like Halloween aesthetic that we were all kind of like interested in. And yeah, there that was like kind of a really fun time where I got to like really just push the art. And I was talking about art like every day with them. And it felt like back in college almost, where you're just like hanging out with other students and you're all sharing ideas and talking about each other's work and stuff. And then Devil, he put on his project. I think it was called Dead Devils Society, right? Like that was his main
Yeah,
one.
society.
Yeah, so I heard about his project and got really excited about that. And then I saw that he was doing that really cool concept where he was inviting other artists to partake in a collaborative element, just by like the original design, you could do your own version of it. So that was the first time that I was like, how do I want to transform his 2D character, this little devil girl, and make it into a piece that is more of my style? And I had some clay laying around. It's like I could probably knock out a clay sculpture pretty fast. And my background is in sculpture, so um, I spent like an afternoon just hacking it out and made a little scene, made this like little Medusa character, and had all the snakes and stuff moving around, and it turned out pretty fun. Like it was a very simple little scene, but like it didn't need much to have some motion, have some life to it. And I think it sold for like 0.5 originally, and was pretty excited that like that was like the biggest sale I had made at the time for like a single piece. And over time, some of my other sculptures or my Nifty Bones were the hand gesture ones. Some of those sold around that time, so it's starting to like actually pick up a little bit and sell some work. But yeah, that was like the big thing that I think we first met originally back
Yeah,
then.
that was actually it was right around that time. You had just sold the your special Dead Devil Society piece. And that's what made me put the connection. When I looked at that art, I was like, who's this artist? And then I went and looked, I was like, oh wait, I was like, this guy's done other work I've seen on TV. I was like, how cool is that? And yeah, and I followed you ever since. I followed your work. I followed what you've been doing in NFTs and stuff, and it's all been amazing. So you went from doing these kind of like one-on-one pieces and a collab with Devil Society, and then a few months went by, and I believe it was around March 2022, which is probably about 6 months after that time frame ish. Uh, you announced that you're coming out with Lucky Ducky NFT, which is that's your own NFT collection. So what inspired you to create Lucky Ducky?
So that was, yeah, like I want to say like a 9 month process, maybe even longer than that, just like learning about the space. And around the same time I was working on Dead Devils, I was also um, getting interested in like what this, I guess you call it like a meme of cool cats and bored apes and these projects that are kind of forming organically that were not just like one of one artists. They were like collections of 10,000 pieces or so. And we look at it now as like these kind of like monolithic, projects, and doing a 10K collection is old hat now. It's very like standard, but back then there wasn't a lot of that. Like Dead Devils was one of the earlier ones too. Um, but I was seeing this organically kind of spring out and getting interested in how it's like not about just like making a one-off piece and selling it. Like they were making lots of variations with different hats and different outfits, and it was all about the like the art style kind of carrying through. And then on the other side, how collectors would now make their character their PFP, and they'd be wearing that on Twitter, and some of them will like change their name to what they think the like the character's name is, and like they make a whole persona sometimes around it. Like it's just really interesting how like there's this new language that was being developed around that, and it felt very um interesting and like very like it felt like we were like just on the precipice of something big happening there. So I was really into the cool cats, and that art style like really spoke to me over Bored Apes at the time, which hindsight, like obviously like would have been great to have bought a Bored Ape just to
No,
hedge my bets, but
I
that
understand.
was
I had that opportunity too, and I was like, no, this isn't my kind of art. So I feel
yeah, I tell people I'm a better artist than I am a trader because I always make the worst calls and like the last minute bad decisions. So like I don't trust myself with like trading mostly. Um, but yeah, I mean, even though I didn't have a Bored Ape, I still like followed them pretty intently and just seeing how they were developing the space and like making a name for themselves and the characters that were coming out of that space, and Cool Cat's the same way. And Cool Cats had more of like a family friendly vibe to it that I really got along with, where Bored Apes felt like more like Robot Chicken, where it's more like fruit and they're kind of rude to each other and they were like just really frank and but I really like the art style for Cool Cats, and I got in the community, and I found one for like points, or it was like 1.2 at the time, which is more than I ever spent on like an NFT at that point. Um, so I bought a Cool Cat and got in the community, and then I started like talking to people and kind of finding all these major characters we now know of, like there's like Toby Lasso and Andrew Wang and Kevin and all these like big people now that are like well known in the space, but back then they're just like interested in the same things I was. And after Dead Devil Society, I started playing around with doing more clay work, and I was thinking that these people that own these PFPs, they want to be like part of something, but also want to have their own um, unique signature on it. And so I saw some of them were like getting little hand-drawn versions of the characters. They were getting like CG versions, um, hiring different artists to interpret their PFP in different styles. So I was like, what better way than turn their PFP into a clay PFP? So I took my Cool Cat and turned it into clay, made it kind of rounded and 3 dimensions, and put it online. And then within like a couple of weeks, I started getting like 20 or so commissions, or like people reaching out to me for derivatives to make their Cool Cat a clay cat. And that just like set me for a while. I was like not needing to find work. I was like, I could just do these commissions for a while and be solid for a bit. Um, but then there's also like the writing on the wall to me was that you don't want to like tie yourself so closely to any one project, because you never know with the space like how things are going to go. Like one day they're like going to the moon, and the next day they're crashing back down. So not to say that I thought that was going to happen about Cool Cat specifically, but I wanted to be smart about this and just be protective a little bit, to like not say I'm the Cool Cat clay cat person and that's all I do. I want to like make a name for myself. And a guy reached out to me by Shrimpy UK, and he said, "Hey, I love your clay work and your clay cat. I want to do a project with you, and let's talk sometime." And uh, there have been other projects that have reached out prior to that, but every time they're like, "We have a project that's like 10,000, hot dogs or something, and we want a clay version of that." And so there's always like they have the project and they just want to hire me on as an artist. They don't want me to like
be
be
involved.
part of that.
Yeah, they don't want you to be a part of the team. They just want to like use your art and then go away.
Yeah. So, and those like, never really interested me because I did that all the time anyways for like Robot Chicken and all the jobs I did. So I was trying to find something different. And James or Shrimpy UK, he said basically like, the sky's the limit. Like whatever you want to do, let's do it. Um, he's based out of the UK, and it was like interesting trying to do this all digitally, like over DMs and Discord. But then we started like really getting down to it, and I asked to bring on the artist Town, who was also in the crew with Devils. And I was like, if I'm gonna be designing these characters, I need an artist that does character designs better than me, because I'm not great at it. So I brought on Googletown, and he was able to like work with me directly, and we just threw a bunch of art back and forth, and we like I gave him some inspiration, he sent me some stuff, and trying to find the style and the character and like all this stuff, and we were like trying different animals and stuff to try to like hone in on what this project was going to be, because at one point it was going to be all humans, another point it was going to be like a bunch of like bunnies or something. It was all these other things first, and then like he drew up these ducks, and the ducks just like stood out to me more so than all the other stuff we had tried out, and it was just like the character kind of like just jumped out at you, and then we started honing it in to the process of just like, okay, maybe let's make it a little shorter, let's make the eyes a little more symmetrical, and just like trying to find like the best version of the concept. And then the name Lucky Ducky just came about because like, just as a turn of phrase, and it really rhymes nicely, and also just like adds a little element of story to these characters that if we call them like, you know, the green duckies, like they wouldn't really say anything. Like now we can talk about if they're lucky and why they're lucky. Like we can just keep adding on to that. And yeah, we were really lucky that there wasn't a lot of other duck projects at the time. There's like sub ducks, and that's about it. Um, yeah, that's kind of like the start of it. And then we just organically started to um, talk about the project. We reached out to some of the communities I was part of and just shared uh, the early Discord and the Twitter handle, and people just started finding it. And it was during this like this almost like gold rush era of NFTs, where like if you have the right tweet that has like an allow list giveaway, you can get like 500 people on that instantly. Because it's such like a rush to like find the next big thing. If you're the first one on the Discord or first one with the allow list spot, then you have a better shot than most at possibly getting a piece and turning out well. Which obviously now it's like a totally different story that only lasted for like this short time frame, but we were very lucky that we got our project off the ground when we did. And yeah, like our Discord was swarmed the first day we opened it up in Miami. We were meeting there for the first time. Uh, James and I, he came from the UK just for this Miami trip. And the first day we're meeting each other, and then our Discord is being opened. And then we have 1,000 people just pop in the Discord and swarm us. And they're all like demanding OG spots. And we had to like tell some people no, and it became this whole big mess. And like, it was just like such a chaotic time that we like had no bearings of like how this process was going to go. Like we were just figuring it out as we went. Yeah, it's really chaotic and really, really weird.
People really wanted those ducks. I remember when I
Yeah.
I was like, because you kind of like came out with a page and other things, and it was like, what's going on here? It was like, was
Yeah.
it like, I want this duck. What's going on with the duck? Like, what's going on with this? And it drove me crazy because I used to go back and forth like on Twitter looking, and I'm like, when's the ducks coming? When are the ducks coming? So I think it's really awesome because I don't know if you're the first claymation NFT or if you're one of them, but I feel like you're kind of like right there in the same time frame. And again, you're the type of art that you do is very hard to copy and just recreate. You got imperfections with your fingerprints and other things on the clay and things of that nature that give it that authenticity. And I think it's a really awesome form of art that you do, and being able to do it generatively. I'm assuming you had to make different props and pieces and things and do them individually. So I feel like that was probably maybe even another learning experience for you in your own craft or something, maybe like another level up. So who all makes up the Lucky Ducky team right now, and what are their roles?
So we have a pretty well-rounded team now. We started out with only it was me, James, William, and Goobletown. And Goobletown, unfortunately, he's an artist that is working in the entertainment field, and he can't be doxxed right now just because of where he's working. So we were able to work with him and get him like working for us, but that was the only way he was going to be able to do it, was if we didn't announce like his real name and dox him and stuff. So to this day, like we haven't shared who he is or where he works or any of that stuff, because it is a really tough thing to be, especially working for studios. You sign a lot of NDAs and non-compete clauses and stuff, and studios end up owning a lot of the work that you produce, whether it's for them or not. So we have to be really careful about that stuff. But yeah, it started out as 4 of us, and since then we've like really grown since Mint, and now we have Coco, who does community work, but also does illustration and game design and development. We have Poet. She does our social media and our copywriting and all of the writing aspects for us. Vic is our project manager, and she's someone I also knew back in the day, Robot Chicken. So she does a lot of directing and producing. So she has more of a kind of a site on stop motion and that pipeline. So she was a great one to add on now that we're trying to angle towards stop motion series. But she's been helping out with project management and doing all the organizational tasks that would normally fall to me before we minted out. Before it was like me wearing 15 different hats, like running social media, and like running the Discord, being on spaces. Like I was doing it all, and sometimes people would like DM the official Twitter and be like, "This, like, what's the deal? What's this Jeremy guy's deal?" Like, like you're talking to me. It's like it's not like a separate element. It's like it's just me under a different name. Yeah, it's been great though having a well-rounded team now, and then we have William and James, and James has been doing our dev work. He's the one that comes up with all the awesome bots and smart contracts and stuff, and we've also been able to add on some commissioned, I guess you call them contract workers, like Moss. I think I met him through the Little Lemons community, but he's an awesome artist in his own right, and he was developing a Lucky Ducky 3D model that he was animating, and I saw that. I was like, "Stop what you're doing! I want to work with you on this. Like, I want to do it in an official capacity." And so, we shared some ideas and talked about time frame and budgets and stuff, and now he's developing that project officially for us as our other side Ducky, since we bought a plot of other side land as our metaverse headquarters. And yeah, so he's been a great part of the team. We just worked recently with Man Over Mars, who is an illustrator and pixel artist that's doing our Pixel Ducky. So he's been pushing that and working with World Wide Web 3, which is a really great pixel metaverse, and just like finding all these great great artists and great community members that are really interested in they want to be building inside our little ecosystem, and a lot of times they start out just for fun, and then we get to like bring them up and now do something more official with them. I found that's like way better to do that than asking some other person out there who doesn't care about us, doesn't know about us, and doesn't have any sort of like respect for what we're trying to do here. It's been way easier just to work with somebody who already gets what we're doing, understands the work. Yeah, and then like we just brought on the Howl team NFTs. He's a really big collector of ours, and he runs this marketing and PR and media company. So we're working with them to help promo what we're working on, help really get the word out, and doing like podcasts and spaces and events and all the places that like I would normally be doing that myself. We can now like have them find that for me and kind of do the outreach part instead. Yeah, we're constantly working with new people and finding new people, and It's just really great to like as an artist that I can delegate now and not have to take it all on myself. And like, I'm not a coder, I'm not a marketer, I'm not like all those other things. Like I'm only like really good at these limited things. And it's nice I can offload some of these jobs to other people.
Yeah, no, I know how that is, because I run Over Jade Cosmetics by myself, and I do everything. So I know sometimes you can get caught up in different responsibilities to where you're wearing all these different hats to where it can either stress you out, frustrate you, and get you off side of what your focus should be. So you've been a successful artist. You've made a name for yourself for your work. You came out with Lucky Ducky. I know that you sold that out very fast. You've had a lot of accomplishments. You've built up a community. You've built up a strong team that has capabilities. So what does the future for Lucky Ducky hold have for their audience? What are you all working on, and what are your plans here in the near future?
So the rich airdrop is a great example where we are trying to kind of showcase kind of the stuff I was only able to talk about in very like lofty ways back in the day, where I was saying like, hey, I'm an artist that I've worked on shows and movies and stuff, and I have a whole address book full of people that I know out in California and probably the world actually. But like, um, it's one thing to say that I know all these people and have all these resources, but what does it look like in practice? And the rich Zim animation is kind of like our first showcase of what that looks like, because he's somebody that I worked on with Robot Chicken, but he has been working as long as I've been alive on Nightmare Before Christmas and James the Giant Peach, and he's developed his own amazing claymation. And we were able to show that recently on the airdrop. It's all claymation that he animated for us. So I was able to work with him, hire him on, and showcase his work. And he's not in NFTs at all. So I was able to kind of bring him into this space and work with him directly, and be the first kind of project that is his first foot in the door, so to speak. And that's kind of the where we see this going, is that all these places, all these people I've met and worked with over time are now resources that I can pull from and develop with. And like Vic is another example where like I worked with her on Robot Chicken, and she's one of the first people I wanted to reach out to for a project management role, because I know how talented she is working in the studios. And it's like I have these go-to people that like when you want to like build out your team, you're like, who do I know that's great at X, Y, and Z? And I have all these people I've made connections with and relationships with over time, 10 years of people. And I think that's one of the like less talked about strengths of this project, is how embedded we are in stop motion. Like it's easy to come out with a project and have like so-and-so celebrity attached, but like what does that look like 6 months after the fact, after the celebrity has moved on and done something else? We're trying to push this towards a show, and obviously like there's people who may be disappointed that it's not already a show on Netflix or Cartoon Network, but I would try to be really clear that this is a process that takes a long time, a lot of moving pieces, and nothing's a guarantee in developing for TV or streaming. So we're trying to do it our best way, responsibly and respectfully to our holders, that like we're not overshooting our what we have. Like we're not saying like, oh, we just had a call with X studio and it went great, because if we do that, that is a signal to holders that, oh, such and such is happening with X studio. Whereas I know better than most that most of those calls and conversations go nowhere the first time, 9 times out of 10. And I've seen some other players in the space who aren't that respectful to their holders, that every call, every conversation, it gets put on blast, and then everyone gets hyped up about it, and then it goes nowhere. And it really is unfortunate that, like people don't understand how that operates, and the space is largely built on hype. It's hard to, develop something real and authentic when that's the lifeblood of a lot of these spaces. But we're trying to do things the right way. And the team that we have is, like, I'm a little biased, but I think it's the best team out there in Web3. And yeah, I may have dropped a few hints along the way in the conversation, but we have another interesting person joining our team soon, that people may not know, but kind of like Rich Sim, they'll know what he's been a part of. And it's really like a power play for us and a move that we're doing to kind of showcase our seriousness about this work and how we're trying to move into animation and stop motion. So we're going to be making some big moves there in the coming weeks. And that as much as I can say as far as that goes, but yeah, like the work on the animation is really kind of the thing that you have to be careful with, like not saying too much, but also I know holders want to hear everything every minute of the day. So we're trying to find new ways to showcase the work that's going into it without putting away the whole scripts and characters and everything. And it's like you don't want to watch a show that you've already read all the scripts for. Like maybe you want to watch it just to see how it turns out, but it gets a little disappointing sometimes when you're watching something and you're like, I already read this, or I already know exactly what's going to happen. So we want to try to do things the way that's like there's still surprises and things happening that, like, people don't expect. So we're still developing how we want to roll these things out, but we will be giving out some info and development news there in the coming weeks. So
awesome.
That's the exciting part for us.
It's great to hear your story. It's very interesting. Like your whole background with art as an artist, you had a family and mother and other people in your social life to support you. You went to school, you tried something out with digital art, you went back to reverting to stop motion. You went out, you worked on films and shows that we're all familiar with. A lot of people throughout the world are. You created your own community with Lucky Ducky. You created your own Lucky Ducky community, your own team. You're working towards the future with other artists. It's been great having you on here and hearing everything that you have to say. Jeremy, I wanted to go ahead and before we stop this interview, I wanted to let you know that we also like clay here at Nova J Cosmetics. I'm going to give you some clay mask.
There you go.
That way you can play with this clay and you can put it on your face and clean all the stuff out, man. But it's a pleasure having you. Everybody, make sure you go to Lucky Ducky's Twitter. Make sure you go follow Jeremy Fisher at his Twitter. Go check out the OpenSea page of Lucky Ducky, and we will talk to you next time.
All right, thanks a lot.